Ausar Thompson is insanely interesting. Ausar Thompson has been making waves this year, and it's been incredible to watch his impact on the court. Even though Detroit has been managing his minutes carefully, with him only playing about 20 minutes per game in January, he's already showing why he's one of the most exciting young players in the league. There's no waiting around with this guy. Every single second he's on the floor, he's making something happen. And the crazy part, he's doing it on both ends of the court. Let's get straight into it because there's so much to break down. Defensively, he's already looking like one of the best perimeter defenders in the league, and that's not an exaggeration. He's averaging an absurd 3 steals per game this month, which is just ridiculous. That's not just good, it's elite, top tier, game-changing defense. He's the kind of defender that makes an entire offense uncomfortable. He's all over passing lanes, reading plays before they happen, and using that insane athleticism to cover ground in a way that most players just can't. If he's guarding you, good luck, because there's a real chance he's getting that ball from you before you even realize it. His ability to guard the point of attack is a massive asset. It's one of the most difficult defensive assignments in basketball, and he's already handling it like a veteran. Last season, he held some of the best offensive players in the game to shocking shooting percentages. Shea shot 30% against him. Damian Lillard shot just over 31%. Tyrese Halliburton barely cracked 33%. These are guys who torch defenders on a nightly basis, and Ausar made them look completely out of rhythm. That's special. That's not normal for a young player. And let's talk about his athleticism, because calling him athletic is just not enough. It doesn't do him justice. He's not just fast, he's smooth. He's not just a leaper, he floats. There are players who can jump high, and then there's Ausar, who moves like gravity barely applies to him. He's the definition of a high-impact athlete, the kind of player who doesn't just move quickly, but moves efficiently. Every motion has a purpose. Every jump looks effortless, and every drive to the basket is done with control. It's almost unfair how naturally gifted he is physically. What makes him even more valuable is his ability to turn defense into offense. Over the past month, Detroit has become one of the most dangerous teams in transition, and a big reason for that is Ausar. Right now, they're ranked #1 in transition frequency and #1 in transition frequency off rebounds. They're also top 10 in transition efficiency. And what happened right before this stretch? Ausar started playing more minutes. That's not a coincidence. His ability to force turnovers and immediately turn them into fast break opportunities is a game changer for this team. By the way, if you guys enjoy these deep dives, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks. Anyways, Thompson, even though his shooting still needs work, he's proving that he doesn't need to be an elite shooter to be effective offensively. The idea that he can't get to the rim is just flat out wrong. If you think that, you're not watching him play. He's relentless when attacking the basket. He's using his length, athleticism, and body control to finish plays in the paint. Sure, he's not a shooter yet, but he's finding ways to contribute on offense by making smart cuts, running the floor, and finishing strong inside. Detroit is being smart about how they're managing his minutes. They're taking a careful approach, likely wanting to maximize his long-term potential without rushing anything. It makes sense. When you have a young player this talented, you want to develop him the right way. And even in limited minutes, he's already proving to be one of their most valuable assets. Some would even argue that outside of Cade Cunningham, he's the most important young player on the roster. That's how impactful he's been. The comparisons to Dyson Daniels are interesting because of how similar their defensive impact. Dyson is one of the best steal artists in the league, and Ausar is right there with him. Steals don't just happen by accident. They require incredible anticipation, quick hands, and elite timing. Ausar is showing all of that. He's reading plays before they develop, reacting instantly, and creating turnovers at an insane rate. If he continues at this pace, he's going to be one of the best perimeter defenders in the entire NBA before long. The next step for him is finding the right teammates to complement his skill set. Pairing him with the right players is going to be crucial for his development and for the team's success. Playing him alongside Isaiah Stewart makes a lot of sense because Stewart can handle the more physical defensive assignments while Ausar locks down the perimeter. That kind of balance is exactly what Detroit needs, but it's also interesting to think about what he could do in different lineups. Imagine a front court featuring Ausar and Tobias Harris. That's a combination with serious defensive versatility. But the biggest thing about Ausar isn't just the numbers, the stats, or even the athleticism. It's the energy he brings. The way he plays changes the entire feel of the game. He's a momentum shifter. He gets stops. He pushes the pace. He makes the kind of plays that get teammates and fans fired up. Those are the types of players you build around. Those are the guys who make a real impact on winning. Detroit has something special with him, This isn't just some young player with potential. This is a guy who is already making a real difference every time he steps on the floor. And he's only going to get better. The foundation is there, the talent is obvious, and the way he's developing is proof that he's on the right path. The Pistons are building for the future, and Ausar Thompson is a massive part of that future. For him though, you really see the impact when you dive into the advanced stats, especially on defense. Ausar Thompson's advanced defensive stats this year are just ridiculous. The numbers speak for themselves, and they show exactly why he's making such a massive impact on that end of the floor. Defensive stats are tricky because they don't always tell the full story, but in this case, they back up everything you see when watching him play. He's affecting games in ways that don't always show up in the basic box score, and that's what makes these numbers so exciting. His mixed team defense rating is through the roof, ranking him ahead of more than 92% of players. That's not just good, that's elite. It means he's not just locking down his individual matchup, but he's also elevating the entire defense around him. That's a rare ability. Most players can either play solid individual defense or contribute to strong team defense, but Ausar is doing both at an incredibly high level. That kind of versatility is invaluable, especially for a young player still adjusting to the NBA. He's averaging 1.5 steals per game, which might not seem outrageous at first glance, but it's what those steals represent that really matters. Every steal is a possession taken away from the other team. Every steal disrupts an offensive rhythm, and every steal creates a potential transition opportunity going the other way. He's not just swiping the ball in meaningless situations. He's getting steals that change the course of a game. He's reading passes, anticipating moves, and using his length to make life miserable for ball handlers. His shot blocking numbers might not jump off the page, sitting at just 0.3 of a block per game, but that doesn't mean he's not affecting shots. Blocks are only one part of rim protection. The real impact comes in how often he's forcing opponents into bad shots, making them hesitate and altering their decisions before they even put the ball up. That's exactly what he's doing. A lot of defensive players chase blocks and end up out of position, but Ausar stays disciplined. He contests shots without overcommitting, which is why he's so effective at limiting opponents' efficiency. His defensive rebounding is another area where he's making a real difference. Pulling down 3.5 defensive rebounds per game shows how active he is on the glass. Defensive rebounding is about more than just grabbing the ball. It's about finishing possessions. If you force a bad shot but give up an offensive rebound, the defense didn't really win that possession. Ausar understands that. He's not just relying on big men to clean up the boards, he's getting involved, securing rebounds and helping his team control possessions. And let's talk about Detroit's team defensive efficiency with him on the floor. Right now, it stands at 108.1, which is a strong mark considering the defensive struggles this team has had at times. What that number shows is that when he's out there, they're significantly better at getting stops. He's anchoring their perimeter defense, forcing turnovers, contesting shots, and making life difficult for whoever he's guarding. He's also doing all of this without gambling too much or making reckless mistakes. That's rare for a young defender. Usually, guys with his kind of athleticism rely too much on their physical tools early on, but he's already playing with the discipline of a veteran. He knows when to take risks and when to play it safe. He's not just out there chasing highlight plays, he's making winning plays. His defensive instincts are just special. You don't see players come into the league this young and immediately understand defensive positioning the way he does. He knows where to be at all times. He knows when to switch, when to fight through screens, when to help, and when to stay home on his man. That kind of awareness is something most players take years to develop, but he's already showing it consistently. And what's even crazier is that he's doing all of this while still adjusting to the speed of the NBA game. He's only scratching the surface of what he can become defensively. The numbers are already elite, but as he continues to learn, refine his technique, and build chemistry with his teammates, he's only going to get better. He's proving that defense isn't just about raw talent, it's about effort, intelligence, and discipline. And he's checking every single one of those boxes at a high level. The advanced numbers back it up, the eye test confirms it, and the impact he's having on games is undeniable. But this is where it gets really crazy. He's averaging 4.5 deflections per game, which puts him in the 98th percentile. That means almost nobody in the entire league is getting their hands on the ball more than he is. Deflections are one of the most underrated defensive stats because they show how active a player is without even needing to register steals. Every time he gets a hand on the ball, it throws off the offense's rhythm, forces bad decisions, and creates chaos. A player who racks up deflections at this rate isn't just a solid defender, he's a defensive playmaker. These moments might not always lead directly to steals, but they force opponents to rush passes, hesitate on their dribble, or even completely abandon a play. When a player is getting his hands on this many passes, it means he's constantly reading the offense, predicting plays, and making things as uncomfortable as possible for the opposition. His turnover creation rate sits at 0.3, which places him in the 79th percentile. That means he's forcing turnovers at a higher rate than nearly 80% of players in the league. He's not just playing solid defense. He's actively taking the ball away from opponents and forcing them into mistakes. That kind of pressure changes the way teams run their offense. Players have to think twice before making a pass or driving into his space, because there's a real chance he's going to make them pay for it. And it's not just about gambling for steals. A lot of defenders who force turnovers do it by playing risky defense, but Ausar is doing it while staying disciplined. He's picking the right moments, making smart reads, and knowing exactly when to pounce. His rim defense rating is negative 8.1, which ranks in the 89th percentile. That number means when opponents challenge him at the rim, they're shooting significantly worse than they normally do. He's making life miserable for players who try to finish near him. It's not just about blocking shots. It's about forcing tough angles, making opponents hesitate, and altering their shots just enough to throw them off. A lot of perimeter defenders struggle to impact shots at the rim, but Ausar is proving that he can defend everywhere on the court. He's getting into passing lanes, shutting down driving lanes, and contesting shots without fouling. And the most impressive part, he's doing all of this against players who are bigger and stronger than him. His rim frequency is 35.3, ranking in the 41st percentile, which shows that he's not constantly stationed under the basket, but still making a real impact when he is. He's not a traditional rim protector, but when he rotates down low, he's still affecting shots at a high level. That's what makes his defense so versatile. He's able to disrupt plays whether he's on the perimeter or inside. Some defenders are specialists. They only guard on the perimeter or only protect the rim, but Ausar is proving he can do both. He's stepping up to contest shots against guards and wings while still providing help defense inside. Speaking of versatility, his defensive versatility score is at 87, which places him in the 89th percentile. That means he's capable of guarding multiple positions at an elite level. He's not just locking in on one type of player. He's switching on to different matchups and making an impact across the board. This is the type of defender every team needs. He's not limited to one role, and that allows his team to be flexible with how they use him. He can switch onto guards, wings, and even some big men without missing a beat. That kind of defensive flexibility is rare, especially for a young player. Most players his age struggle to keep up with the speed of the NBA, but he's already defending at a veteran level. His block percentage is 2.5, which puts him in the 75th percentile. That might not seem like an outrageous number, but for a wing player, it's actually elite. He's blocking more shots than most guards and wings in the league, and he's doing it without gambling too much. Some players chase blocks and end up out of position, but he's staying disciplined while still protecting the rim when needed. He's not swatting shots just to make highlights. He's blocking them in situations where it really matters. He's contesting at the right moments, using his length to get a piece of the ball, and making sure that even if he doesn't get the block, he's still altering the shot. One area where he still has room to grow is fouls. His relative personal fouls rate is 1.7, which is in the 8th percentile. That means he's fouling more than most players, and that's something he'll need to refine. But that's expected for a young defender who plays with this much energy. He's constantly engaged, pressuring ball handlers, and contesting shots. So naturally, he's going to pick up some foul. As he gains more experience, he'll learn how to be just as aggressive without getting into foul trouble as often. Young defenders almost always have to go through an adjustment period when it comes to fouls. He's figuring out how physical he can be, how to use his hands without drawing whistles, and when to ease up on the aggression. Over time, that's going to improve. And when it does, he's going to be even more dangerous on defense. His defensive impact is summed up best by his crafted defensive plus minus, which is 1.9, placing him in the 93rd percentile. That number measures a player's overall defensive value, and being in the 93rd percentile means he's one of the best defenders in the entire league already. That's rare for a young player, and it proves just how much of an impact he's making on that end of the floor. He's not just playing good defense, he's changing games. The best defenders in the league don't just stop their man from scoring, they force bad shots, make players hesitate, and disrupt entire offenses. That's exactly what he's doing. These numbers show that his defense is not just good, it's elite. He's affecting the game in every possible way, from forcing turnovers to contesting shots at the rim to switching onto multiple positions. He's proving that defense is about more than just blocks and steals. It's about disrupting offenses, making life difficult for opponents, and playing with the kind of intensity that changes games. What makes all of this even more impressive is that he's doing it while still adjusting to the speed of the NBA game. Most rookies struggle to keep up, especially on defense. They get caught out of position, they bite on fakes, and they have trouble adjusting to the size and skill level of NBA players. But Ausar is already ahead of the curve. He's making plays that most veteran defenders struggle with. He's playing with discipline, effort, and a level of understanding that you don't usually see in a player this young. As the season goes on, he's only going to get better. His instincts are already elite. His versatility is off the charts, and the numbers back up just how valuable he is on defense. He's not just a good defender for a rookie. He's one of the best defenders in the entire league right now. And the best part, he's only scratching the surface of what he can become. Ausar Thompson is already one of the best defenders in the league, and he's only getting started. But then we can look at his rebounding numbers. Ausar Thompson's rebounding numbers this year are seriously impressive. He's not just grabbing a few here and there, he's putting up numbers that rank ahead of more than 80% of players in the entire league. Rebounding is usually dominated by big men, but Ausar is proving that size is not the only thing that matters when it comes to controlling the boards. Right now, he's averaging 4.7 rebounds per game, which already puts him ahead of most players in the league. That alone is solid, but when you break it down further, it gets even better. He's pulling in 3.4 defensive rebounds per game and 1.4 offensive rebounds per game. That balance shows that he's not just doing the easy work of cleaning up missed shots, he's also creating extra possessions on offense. That's huge. His offensive rebounding percentage is sitting at 6.93%, which means he's grabbing nearly 7% of all available offensive rebounds while he's on the floor. That ranks higher than 78% of players. That's a big deal because offensive rebounding is one of the most underrated skills in basketball. Getting an extra possession for your team means another chance to score, and in a close game, that can make all the difference. But his defensive rebounding numbers are just as strong. His defensive rebounding percentage is sitting at 17.68%, which puts him ahead of 80% of players in the league. That means when a shot goes up, he's securing nearly 18% of all available defensive rebounds while he's in the game. That's elite for a wing player. Most guys, his size are not anywhere near that level when it comes to rebounding. What makes this even more impressive is how he's doing it. Rebounding is not just about jumping high. It's about positioning, timing, and effort. Some players rely on pure athleticism, but Ausar is showing that he has the instincts to consistently be in the right place at the right time. He's tracking the ball, boxing out, and fighting for every board. That kind of effort does not show up in highlight reels, but it makes a massive difference on the court. Offensive rebounding is one of the hardest things to do in the NBA because defenders are always trying to box you out, but Ausar is still managing to grab 1.4 per game, and that's because he never stops moving. He's reading the shot, anticipating the bounce, and finding ways to slip through defenders to get a hand on the ball. On the defensive side, he's even more dominant. 3.4 defensive rebounds per game might not sound like a massive number, but when you look at his percentage, it shows how valuable he is. Grabbing nearly 18% of all available defensive rebounds is a game changer. It means he's finishing defensive possessions, preventing second chance opportunities, and helping his team control the tempo. What makes his rebounding even more valuable is how quickly he turns them into transition opportunity. He's not just grabbing the ball and standing around. He's immediately looking to push the pace. That's one of the biggest reasons why Detroit's transition game has been so strong lately. When a player can secure the board and instantly create an offensive opportunity, that changes the way defenses have to react. Ausar is proving that rebounding is not just for big men. His numbers are already better than most wings, and they're only going to improve as he gets stronger and more experienced. He's showing that effort, intelligence, and instinct can make a player just as dominant on the boards as size and strength. But I also want to look at his usage numbers. Ausar Thompson's advanced usage stats this year tell a fascinating story. His role on the team might not be the highest in terms of overall volume, but when he's involved in a play, he's making things happen. His usage rate sits at 19%, which means nearly 1 out of every 5 offensive plays ends with him taking action. That might not seem like a massive number at first, but considering his play style, it shows how much he's involved in key moments. He's taking 6.4 field goal attempts per game, which means he's getting his shots up at a steady rate without forcing things. That's important because it shows he's not just chucking up shots for the sake of it. He's picking his spots and letting the game come to him. Some players with a similar usage rate tend to be inefficient with their opportunities, but Ausar is making the most of his chances. His free throw attempts sit at 1.6 per game, which might not be an eye-popping number, but it still shows he's attacking the basket and drawing contact when he gets there. That's an area that will likely grow over time as he continues to refine his offensive game and get more comfortable with absorbing contact in traffic. The fact that he's already getting to the line at this rate is a great sign for his future offensive development. His playmaking numbers add another interesting layer to his usage stats. He's averaging 1.8 assists per game, showing that when the ball is in his hands, he's not just looking for his own shot. He's creating opportunities for others. He's making smart reads, moving the ball, and keeping the offense flowing. That's a valuable skill for a player with his role because it means he's not just a scorer or a defender, he's an all-around playmaker. Of course, with playmaking comes turnovers, and he's currently averaging 1.4 per game. That's actually a pretty solid number, considering how often he has the ball in his hands. Turnovers are always going to be part of the game, especially for young players adjusting to the speed of NBA defenses. But the fact that he's keeping them relatively low while still being aggressive is a great sign. He's taking care of the ball and not making too many risky decisions. The most interesting stat is his total possessions played per game, which sits at 39.6. That number shows how much he's actually involved in the offense. Even if his raw numbers don't always jump off the page, he's out there making an impact on nearly 40 possessions per game, which means he's constantly in the action, whether it's as a scorer, passer, or someone keeping the offense moving. When you put all these numbers together, it's clear that his role is steadily growing. He's not being asked to be the number one option right now, but he's still finding ways to be effective in the opportunities he's getting. He's picking his spots, making smart decisions, and contributing in a way that helps the team without forcing bad shots or playing out of control. As he continues to develop, his usage rate could increase, but even at 19%, he's already showing that he knows how to impact the game efficiently. These numbers prove he's not just out there running around, he's actively shaping the offense in a meaningful way. I want to compare Ausar's season to other great wing defenders of the past sophomore seasons though, like check this out. Tony Allen's second year with Boston saw him average 7.2 points, 2.2 rebounds, 1.3 assists, and 1 steal per game in just under 20 minutes. He was a defensive specialist who carved out a long career by locking down some of the best scorers in the league. But while Allen's defensive instincts were elite, he did not have the athletic ability that Ausar possesses. Allen relied on footwork, effort, and anticipation to make up for his lack of size. But Ausar's natural gifts allow him to recover faster, contest better, and cover more ground than Allen ever could. Thabo Sefolosha's second season in Chicago was solid, averaging 6.7 points, 3.7 rebounds, 1.9 assists, and nearly 1 steal per game. He was known for his length and defensive discipline, but he did not have the explosiveness that Ausar brings to the game. Sefolosha was a strong perimeter defender who played with intelligence, but Ausar has the kind of athleticism that lets him impact the game in transition, at the rim, and even as a shot blocker in ways Sefolosha never did. Ron Artest's second season with the Bulls was arguably the best statistical comparison to Ausar's. He averaged 11.9 points, 3.9 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 steals per game, but he did not have the quickness or leaping ability that Ausar has. Artest was one of the best defenders of his time, but he relied on toughness and physicality to get the job done. Ausar, on the other hand, is shutting down opponents with his length, speed, and anticipation. His defensive ceiling is even higher because he can do things defensively that Artest never had the physical tools to accomplish. Marcus Smart's second year was strong, averaging 9.1 points, 4.2 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1.5 steals per game, while playing a key role for a playoff team. Smart became one of the best perimeter defenders in the league because of his intensity, effort, and defensive IQ. He played bigger than his size and was constantly making winning plays. But again, Ausar's physical profile sets him apart. He is taller, longer, and far more athletic, which means he can guard more positions, impact the game at the rim, and use his physical gifts in ways Smart never could. The biggest difference between Ausar and every one of these players is that none of them had his combination of athleticism and size. He is not just a great defender, he is a defensive weapon that covers ground in ways the league has rarely seen. He is already competing with some of the best defensive wings from past eras, and he is doing it with tools that none of them had. He is not just another defensive specialist, he is a unique force who is rewriting what it means to be an elite defensive wing. I mean, it really is crazy when you think of Ausar and Amon. Amon and Ausar Thompson have been nothing short of incredible. They have defied basketball logic in every possible way, proving that elite athleticism, defensive IQ, and decision-making can still dominate in a league that revolves around three-point shooting. They were drafted back-to-back in the 2023 NBA draft, with Ammon going 4th overall to the Rockets and Ausar going 5th overall to the Pistons. From day one, they have been proving why they belong in this league. Their path to the NBA was anything but normal. Coming from the Overtime Elite program, they were the first players from that league to be drafted into the NBA. That raised a lot of questions about how their games would translate, especially since they were known for their athleticism and defense, but had underdeveloped shooting abilities. The skepticism was loud, but the Thompson Twins did not just silence the doubters, they completely changed the conversation. A season and a half into their careers, they have already shown why they were top 5 picks. Their offensive skills are still raw, but their impact on the game is undeniable. Ammon is averaging 12.6 points, 7.7 rebounds, and 2.4 assists per game while shooting an efficient 55.7% from the field. Meanwhile, Ausar is averaging 7.6 points, 4.6 rebounds, and 1.8 assists while shooting 51.3% from the field. They may not be shooters, but they are still incredibly efficient in scoring because they know exactly how to use their strengths to their advantage. Ammon has been a crucial piece for the Rockets, playing a major role in their rise to the 2nd seed in the Western Conference. Despite not having an outside shot, he is an elite scorer because of his ability to finish inside. Defenses know he wants to get to the rim, but they still cannot stop him. He has a deadly floater that keeps defenders guessing, and his athleticism makes him a nightmare to contain. Ausar, on the other hand, has been one of the best off-ball wings in the league. He has a natural ability to make the right cuts, find the right lanes, and put himself in perfect positions to finish plays. He may not be the primary option on offense, but he does all the little things that make a team better. His rebounding, hustle, and ability to keep the offense moving make him an invaluable piece for Detroit. Both of them are elite when attacking the rim. Even though every defense knows that is their primary way of scoring, they are still getting it done at an insanely high level. This season, they are both shooting 68% or better from less than 5 feet. That is a ridiculous number, and it shows how effective they are at finishing in traffic, absorbing contact, and using their athleticism to their advantage. It does not matter if there is a defender in front of them. Once they get inside, they are converting at an elite rate, but scoring is only part of what makes them so special. Their decision-making is already among the best in the league. They may be young, but they play with a level of intelligence that is rare for players their age. They are not just trying to force their way into the game, they are reading defenses, making the right passes, and setting up teammates in ways that do not always show up in the box score. Their understanding of the game is far beyond their years. Their defensive impact is where they truly shine. They are both already considered elite defenders, and that is not an exaggeration. At just 21 years old, they are some of the smartest defenders in the entire NBA. They are constantly disrupting plays, cutting off passing lanes, and making life miserable for whoever they are guarding. Their defensive IQ, combined with their length and athleticism, allows them to guard multiple positions with ease. They can switch onto almost anyone, and they do not just rely on athleticism. They have the instincts and awareness to always be in the right place at the right time. Ammon has become one of the best defensive playmakers for Houston, using his length and speed to shut down opposing offenses. His ability to guard both backcourt and frontcourt players makes him a major problem for teams trying to find a mismatch. He is not just reacting to plays, he is anticipating them before they even happen. Ausar has been just as dominant for Detroit. He is already one of the best perimeter defenders on the team, and his ability to cover ground quickly allows him to disrupt plays even when it looks like he is out of position. He does not just contest shots, he forces bad decisions. Opposing players are shooting worse when he is guarding them, and that is a sign of a true defensive stopper. The crazy part is that they are doing all of this while still developing their offensive games. Most players with limited shooting ability struggle to find ways to contribute, but the Thompson Twins have completely flipped that idea on its head. They are proving that you do not need to be a great shooter to be a great player in the modern NBA. Their combination of athleticism, finishing ability, defense, and basketball IQ makes them two of the most unique players in the league. They are showing that even in an era dominated by three-point shooting, there is still room for players who do everything else at an elite level. They are not just surviving in the NBA, they are thriving. They have quickly become fan favorites for their teams, and it is easy to see why. They play with energy, they make winning plays, and they never take a play off. They do not just rely on their athleticism, they use it to maximize every part of their game. They are proving that players who cannot shoot from deep can still dominate if they are elite in other areas. Their impact goes beyond stats. They bring an intensity and competitiveness that lifts their teams whenever they are on the floor. They are setting the tone on defense, pushing the pace in transition, and making the right plays when it matters most. They are not just playing basketball, they are controlling the game in ways that most young players cannot. The fact that both of them are on track to help their teams make the playoffs makes their success even more impressive. They were doubted because of their shooting, but they are proving that impact on the game is about more than just knocking down threes. They are redefining what it means to be a valuable NBA player, and they are doing it on their own terms. Every time they step on the court, they are proving that their style of play works. They are not just anomalies, they are the future. They have already shattered expectations, and they are only getting started. If you guys enjoyed this, I'll be posting every day during this season. I genuinely appreciate if you could subscribe. Thanks for watching.